One of the fascinations about the cinema is that the lights went down. You were in the dark. It's very private. And I used to turn round and look at that beam going through the tobacco smoke. And it still holds a kind of fascination for me. I don't know why. It's part of the magic show, I think. And that beam showed me places I thought I'd never visit. I've been terribly lucky and I have visited them. It showed me characters. I met all sorts of people, i.e. the characters on the screen, that I'd never meet in my ordinary dull suburban life.
Please, sir, I want some more.
What? 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 Ask for more?
In 1984, we were given access to what would be David Lean's last film, A Passage to India.
Okay, cut it.
One of the things that you noticed immediately about David Lean is how handsome and good-looking he was in a classical English way. His chin was nearly always tilted up. He was lean-faced. Lean name, lean-faced. Haircut, meticulously cut, silver hair, as if it were slightly trimmed every 2 or 3 days. He dressed in precisely the same clothes every day, a bit like Hitchcock.
I thought I had it all set. And we were going to do a shot through the bazaar, you see, quite a long shot following that carriage.
Yeah.
And having laid the track, done everything else, I looked through the camera and I suddenly realized the bazaar's so good, it's so full of color, that your mind goes off the principal action and goes on to the bazaar, and it's like a documentary of the bazaar.
Yeah.
So I changed the whole thing, and I'm doing the whole thing close, and from their point of view, it'll be better.
He had a real joy in bringing what he thought was the finest spirit out of people. And he could do that, could transfer that onto the screen. David left school at 16. He thought of himself as a dud. The greatest compliment ever paid to him in his early years was when an uncle gave him a camera, which proved to David that his uncle thought he was capable of taking photographs.
It was box black like this. I remember it very well. And I went out and I started to take pictures, and they came out. And it became my great friend. I found myself rather good at it.
Extraordinary visual sense, he really did. Whether that developed as an editor, looking at frames, I'm not sure. But he did have an extraordinarily strong visual sense. His own photographs are fantastic. He was a really good photographer.
So I went to my father and said, I'd like to go into the films. And he was very good, and he got me an introduction to an accountant at Gaumont British. I remember going into that studio at Lime Grove, now used by the BBC, and looking at cameras. And that camera had photographed Roses of Picardy, which was one of my favorite films at that time. I remember touching it and finding I was in some wonderful magic world. And they took me on, and they paid me £1 a week, and I did everything. I humped cameras around, I pulled focus, I had a brief spell as wardrobe mistress, and I finally eased my way into the cutting rooms. These were in the silent days, and it was a world of magic.
But Lean had entered the industry on the eve of a radical change. With the coming of sound, the newsreels could tell stories much more effectively, and Lean was quick to grasp the editing skills required.
Cutting a newsreel, you learn speed. You've got to make decisions. There's no messing about, and I'm going to take a walk and wonder how this is going to come out. You know, there it is, you've got to cut it, and you've got to have it out in 2 hours. And I think that's terribly important. I think lots of people look on movies as some kind of dreaming job. It isn't. It's intensely practical. You have to be intensely practical, and you have to be, I think, pretty imaginative. And very often, the imaginative doesn't go with the practical. I think that's why there are few film directors.
There's that scene, amazing scene in Oliver Twist, where Bill Sikes is assaulting, kills Nancy.
Oh, I've been true to you. Upon my soul, I have. Give me time.
You've got the dog trying to get out of the room. That's bloody brilliant. That is really brilliant. Because your imagination leaps ahead of you in terms of what Bill Sikes is doing to her. And, you know, the first time you see Madge.
Keep still, you little devil, or I'll cut your throat.
No, sir, no.
Tell us your name. Quick.
Pip, sir.
And now I was worried sick about Magwitch, the introduction of the convict in the graveyard. I decided that the best way, the only hope I had, was to frighten the audience, as the convict frightens the boy, and then he can almost say anything. And I remember going to the press show, I think it was, and I was sitting up high. And as the convict came out, the whole audience went back in a wave. And, you know, I knew I was halfway there.
I definitely was very impressed by David's emphasis on how you introduced people into movies. That, you know, the first time you see someone's important, and it ought to come across as being important. People don't drift into films unless that's a point you want to make.
One of the scenes in Lawrence that people remark on a lot is Omar Sharif's arrival at the well, which had a very long build-up. Was that the idea of such a long build-up based on the advice that you were given by a man you admire very much, Willie Wyler?
Willie once said to me, he said, if you're going to shock an audience, get them almost to the point of boredom before doing so. And of course he's right. And what I did was I had this scene with him coming to this well, sitting down, whistling. And then he hears the guide get up and he looks. And he sees a dot coming towards him, you see. And it gradually develops.
But
You know, it takes balls. I try to imagine now showing that scene in a rough cut to a studio, and the first question was going to be, well, couldn't you take out the first 15 seconds of it? That's a kind of collective courage to hold that shot and to have the nerve to realize that it's the cumulative power of it, not any moment in it. It's the cumulative power of the shot that actually is what we remember. I'm not sure that type of courage exists very much anymore.
who is he? Tapas!
He is dead.
Yes. Why?
This is my well.
In fact, I lost my nerve. I had the Omar coming out of the mirage at double the length, and it was better. And I lost my nerve and cut it quite a bit. I wish I hadn't.
By the late 1930s, Lean was regarded as the best film editor in Britain. He now cut feature films and was paid £60 a week, twice what other editors earned. He was often called in to rescue films that had gone wrong. Then in 1941, he got his first big break.
One day, I was asked to go and see Noel Coward, and he said, my dear, I'm going to make a film about the British Navy. And that was a film called In Which We Serve, which was highly successful. Now, Noel said, will you come and help me direct it? Because Noel had never directed a film before, and of course it's quite a bag of tricks directing a film. You have to know something about the technique. And he'd gone around asking who is a good technician. And say 3 or 4 people had said me. And that's how I became the director.
Lean made his mark with high-tension action scenes, such as this, on a battleship in World War II.
Acting was a kind of mystery to me. And Noel, of course, was simply wonderful at that. He was wonderful with actors. And I took over the technical thing. I decided where the camera was, what lens to use. And Noel took over the actors. Well, I said I was lucky. I was lucky because Noel became terribly easily bored. And he got bored very soon. And when he wasn't acting in one of the scenes, he wasn't there. So I handled the whole damn thing. You know, great piece of luck.
Lean went on to make 3 more films with Noel Coward. This Happy Breed, Blithe Spirit, and the classic Brief Encounter, which won him the first Oscar nomination for any British director.
Oh, please, could you give me a glass of water? I've got something in my eye and I want to bathe it.
Can I help you?
Oh, no, please, it's only something in my eye.
Try pulling your eyelid down as far as it'll go.
And then blowing your nose. Please let me look. I happen to be a doctor.
Oh, it's very kind of you.
Oh, turn around to the light, please. Now, look up. Now, look down. Keep still. I see it. There.
Oh, what a relief. It was agonizing.
Looks like a bit of grit.
It was when the express went through. Thank you very much indeed.
There we go. On this run.
How like it for me you happened to be here.
Anybody could have done it.
Never mind, you did, and I'm most grateful.
There's my train. I'm scared. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Though it was based on a Coward play, the screenplay of Brief Encounter was radically reworked by Lean. A rigorous, almost obsessive attention to the script would be one of the hallmarks of every David Lean film from now on.
Yeah, okay, let's see what we've got. I mean, it's a shame. I know they aren't. What am I doing now? It's in the script, and we haven't got them. Bring them out.
In the script, Lean had imagined the scarves of the women in the car flying in the wind. It isn't working out the way he wanted.
When we shot in India, for we're doing Passage to India, watching him on the set, first of all, he would do it again and again, like many directors do. But if anybody ever said anything about what are we doing, he would snap, it's all in the script. Read the script. It's all in the script.
My favourite one is The Women Are Worse.
And he put in the script everything that he maintained, that if he dropped in his track, somebody could take that script and do the film he would have made, because it's all in the script.
Give the shot a bit of variation.
In the 1970s, I worked with David Lean on the script of a new film of Mutiny on the Bounty, which he never made. I worked with him for about 3 months, 5 days a week in his suite at the Berkeley Hotel. Not exactly a dismal dungeon environment, but he was very, very demanding taskmaster. You would literally work for 3 days over 2 lines of dialogue. I remember once finishing a scene. I was so pleased to finish it. And he read it, he used to read it back to you. and then ask you to read it back to him. On and on it went. And finally, it was sort of torment, really. He said, that's it. That's it. That's it. Where's the light source? Well, I thought that was his job. But he wanted to know whether there was a candle there, or was a lamp there, or the moon was coming through a porthole, or whatever it was. Where's the light source? And that kept happening.
We saw the flags, the curtains in the back, ending on pretty well their faces, the pearl of women, the car going through. I think it'll look smashing. It really worked. Getting hot. I think the good things in movies are the scenes that are made up of cuts. That person doing this, that person doing that. Quick series of shots, you know? It's very carefully thought out. And I try to imagine what the final result's going to be on the screen. And I put down all those shots. The script is, in fact, a blueprint. You know, I may alter it at the time, but it's a frightening job doing a picture in a way, because you have hundreds of people around you, a lot of highly paid technicians, the money people practically looking at their watches all the time, and are you going to be behind schedule, etc., etc., etc. And there are tremendous pressures, and my script is something I can lean back against.
People will be impressed by the detail in which you not only imagine the way people look and what they're looking at, but what they do, how they react. I mean, it is totally imagined through. If you read the script very, very slowly, totally imagined through.
Yes, I mean, I did a scene yesterday which I don't think I don't think I could have done if I hadn't written it down. It's the introduction to this Indian character, Dr. Aziz, and we have the collector, who's the sort of miniature viceroy of the district, driving through a town, and he runs down two cyclists who just get out of the way in time. Hell of a lot of dust. Action! Dust clears. Go on, more. And that's Aziz. Now, cut. What I think would really be good, another great dollop.
It's late, Charles. 726, take two.
So that here, I'd like him almost a sort of silhouette.
Aaron.
So it's something really clear. I don't care how much we go in. So that on the ground, it's pretty thick. It starts to clear, another great dollop, which will carry right through. All right?
Turn over. Running. It's late.
Now, douse him. Victor. In you go. Go on. Go on, boys. Go on. Cut. Let's see the falling off the bike. In this film, we've taken about 1,400 separate shots, and it's like putting a giant jigsaw together. And it's this fitting of the jigsaw together that fascinates me as far as the film's concerned. This sequence that I'm doing at the moment, I could do all in a long shot. I think it'd be pretty boring. Now, I've taken a series of shots, about 8, I should think. Here we see, you'll see. Now, there's two people in the back of the car. Couple waving. Then there's two people on the bike. Cut back to the couple. She clutches the man, says, "Look out." Bike swerve. She screams. And the bike falls over, do you see? Now, and this is running it at normal speed. Looks quite different, you see. Look. And there's Aziz. Now, I think that's much more interesting than showing it in a one single long shot. In fact, I know it is. But it appears on the screen as if it is one shot. It isn't. It's about 6 shots, cut very fast, one after the other, and sound effects binding them all up. And if you know your stuff about cutting, it really does look like one shot. You don't say, oh, there's the man watching, there's the man on the cyclist, there's that. At speed, it looks like one continuous piece of action. The number of times I've come out of the cinema where there's been a rather well-cut sequence, and I've heard people say, that was very good photography. It's to hell with the photographer, it's the cutter.
Look out!
I love being behind the camera. I love putting images up on the screen. I get a tremendous kick of seeing a sequence cut. I'm in the middle of it now, putting music to a film, getting the dialogue, balance right. I find it immensely exciting. It's been my life